I'm Anna.
And I'm Alex, and we're talking about the Lewis and Clark expedition.
Around 1800, President Thomas Jefferson asked Meriwether Lewis to go out and seek new lands and territories, so that's exactly what he did. Lewis decided to bring along his colleague, William Clark, a military leader and explorer. Lewis had served under Clark during the Northwest campaigns in the 1790s in Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio, where their relationship began. Lewis and Clark have worked together in the past, hence why Lewis asked Clark to come along with him on this journey westward into the unknown. The pair began their journey on May 14, 1804, and came back on September 23, 1806. That's a total of 2 years, 4 months, and 10 days away exploring the West. Their exploration started near St. Louis and then headed northwest. After the Louisiana Purchase Treaty was made, President Jefferson wanted Lewis and Clark to explore the newly purchased land and the territory beyond the Great Rock Mountains in the west. Once they traveled through the Louisiana Purchase, they made their way towards the Pacific Ocean in what was known as Oregon Country. They also determined the true course of Upper Missouri and its major tributaries, as well as observed ranges, mountains, and different types of soils.
During the Lewis and Clark expedition, they discovered many new animals and plants. They found plants such as golden currant, bitter root, wild onion, prickly pear, and cottonwood. They also found many new cool animals, such as a grizzly bear, a bighorn sheep, cutthroat trout, swift fox, white-tailed jackrabbits, and bushy-tailed wood rats. They also had 2 birds named after themselves that they found too. During this trip, they created maps of the land that they had traveled. They also took notes on the animals and plants that they discovered, and they studied all these cool new things that they found. They also took samples and parts of the animals, such as furs, bones, leaves and stuff, so that they can show to Thomas Jefferson. The main people who were involved with this expedition were Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. They were the leaders of the expedition and were instructed by the president. They led the expedition through the South and back home. Sacagawea was also another big key factor in this expedition. She taught Lewis and Clark how to survive in this new land. She taught them how to hunt and gather specimens and animals so that they can report this back to the president. The next person is York, which is Clark's servant, who was always by his side. And there's also Sergeant Charles Floyd, who was among one of the first to volunteer for this expedition. And final is Charbonneau, which was Sacagawea's husband and from another native tribe, and also helped Lewis and Clark survive this new land.
The expedition came to an end. There were many things gained from this expansion. Not only President Thomas Jefferson, but everyone became more knowledgeable about the types of land surrounding us, the people who populate those lands, and new species of plants and animals. Lewis and Clark's journey also helped create a relationship with the native tribes, who lived very differently from us back then. The natives proved to us how helpful they were and offered to expand their knowledge to us about the lands they lived on that we were discovering. They also were a translator for us to the other tribes, as well as guidance that we needed during this trip to be successful. Ultimately, with the knowledge accumulated during the President Jefferson was better able to make informed decisions regarding the westward expansion of the United States. So for a recap, President Thomas Jefferson asks Meriwether Lewis to accomplish the expedition in April of 1803. Then the journey actually begins on May 14, 1804, by Lewis and his partner William Clark to head westward to discover the unknown territory. Sacagawea is invited to help guide and act as a translator during the pair's exploration in November of 1804. Later, Lewis and Clark begin their journey home, back to St. Louis in March of 1806. Lastly, after 2 years, 4 months, and 10 days, Lewis and Clark reached St. Louis on September 23, 1806.